Psalms 23 is written by King David. It's curious, though, that this king, this person that when he was young, if he would aspire to the greatest heights in his community, in his era, like the best thing that he could become, the have all, the end all the have alls would be to become the king. And here we have the one who received the recommendation, who got called by God, who been placed as the king of Israel. He's at the top of his game. And this king says that the Lord is his shepherd. This king now, it's funny how oftentimes we feel like we get to a place where we know everything and we got everything under control. I remember when I was 13 years old, do you? I remember when I thought I knew it all. But when I became 18 years old and I look back at my 13-year-old self, I said, that guy was an idiot. But then when I turned 25, see, and I look back on my 18-year-old, I realized that he had some problems, even though that 18-year-old thought he knew it all. And now at 48, I realize that even though I know more than I knew at 25, even though I'm wiser than I was at 18, even though I'm further along than I was at 13, I pale in comparison to God who has been here forever. And so when I consider God and his juxtaposition with me, that's true. I'm glad that he's on my team. I'm glad he's not the antagonist on my epic story. I'm glad that he is my protector. I'm glad that he is my provider. I'm glad that he is my shepherd. Because he's my shepherd, I shall not want. Because he is my shepherd, he maketh me to lie down in by still waters. Because he is my shepherd, he restores my soul. And can we stop here for a minute? Because David writing this for us from the viewpoint of a shepherd, he understands that what restoration means to a shepherd. You see, a shepherd will always come out and continually go through the process of counting his sheep to make sure all his sheep are visible, all his sheep are all right. And when his count don't come out right, the shepherd will always start to search and look and find which sheep is not where it's supposed to be, because it's easy for a sheep to be cast down. What am I talking about? And remember, David here is talking about God as his shepherd. David here is talking about God restoring him. We're not talking about some lost soul. We're talking about a Christian. We're talking about somebody that was called by God. And so we're not talking come on, because some of us feel like if we in the church, we good. But see, even those who follow God sometime need to be restored. And so David puts himself in the place of a sheep and says that God restores me. Now, a sheep that needs restoration is a sheep that's been cast down. A sheep that's been cast down is a sheep that's on his back. Now, how does this happen? You see, there are three ways that a sheep can find himself helpless and on his back. One way is that if the sheep has a fleece that is too big, if a sheep just has a coat that is just too heavy, that sheep can find himself rolled over on his back and not able to get up anymore. Now this is curious, because the fleece is something that grows naturally on the sheep, but the fleece, if a sheep is well taken care of, a fleece is something that will benefit somebody else. And so what this is telling me is, when we're holding or hoarding things that we've been blessed with, that we should be helping other people with, we're in danger of needing restoration. The other position that a sheep could be in to be in need or find himself in need of restoration is if a sheep now is too fat. Yeah, this is curious. The only way a sheep can get too fat is if the shepherd is doing his job. You know what I'm saying? If a sheep is too fat, that means the sheep is being fed. A sheep is eating. Now, the only way you get too fat is if you got more calories coming in than you got that you working off. All right, your caloric intake is higher than your output. So what this represents is God's blessings are more than you exercise. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Now, some of us are just eating. We love going to church, and nowadays we love watching church. We read, we do our devotion, we read the Bible. We're taking in, we're getting those spiritual calories. But if we just take in a bunch of spiritual calories, but we don't do anything, if we don't exercise our faith, we're getting the theory, we're getting the scholarship, but we start to feel righteous when we're not doing any righteous acts. And that's a place of vulnerability, and we can find ourselves on our back. Now, the third way, because I see you, you're saying that it's always the sheep's fault that they find themselves on their back, but there's another way, there's another circumstance where a sheep can be in a situation where they're on their back, and it's not because they're lazy, it's not because they're not exercising, it's not because they're hoarding, but the other way is when a sheep is ready to lay down and for the night, a sheep will look around for a nice soft spot. And when it's looking over the grass grows better like if it's a little concave in the landscape. Do you know what I'm talking about? Because, of course, if it rains, like water flows down. And so if there's a little dip, the grass will grow a little taller right there. So it'll look like a nice water bed. It'll look like a nice, comfortable, soft bed, and a sheep would just go over to that spot to lie down. And when it gets over there, it gets ready to lie down in the nice soft grass, because there's a little dip. Sometimes when it lays down, it'll stretch out a little bit. And once it stretches out, sometimes the center of gravity will change and it will start to roll over on its back. The sheep will get frantic a little bit, and the sheep will start bleeding. And next thing you know, the sheep is flat on his back. And because the circumstances that were around the sheep, not the sheep's own fault, but the circumstances surrounding the sheep, has the sheep in a position where it needs to be restored. Now, the good shepherd, always counting his sheep, is paying attention to the fact that, whoa, one of my sheep is missing. I have to find him. Because when a sheep is in need of restoration, it's at its most vulnerable point. That's when the coyotes and the wild dogs, that's when the buzzards, that's when they started circling. When a sheep is on its back, it's more vulnerable than any time. Like we need to be restored by God as soon as possible, because there are things circling that are just waiting for us to fall behind. There's things waiting for us to be slipping. And those are the times that we can find ourselves practicing and doing things that we never thought we would have done, because we found ourselves in a place of vulnerability. But my God is one that seeks and finds those who are lost. I'm so glad that the good shepherd, we can bleat, call on God, look, but it ain't like God don't know what's going on. God is always watching. He is the good shepherd. He wants to restore us. He wants us to get back to the place that he created us to be. And if you are a fat Christian, if you are a hoarder of the blessings God's given you, and you find yourself slipping, you find yourself not involved, not ministering, you find yourself just living fat on the luxury of the blessings that God has given you. If for some reason the circumstances of life have gotten you in a position to where you're on your back and you can't get up by yourself, God is in the business of restoring his sheep. And he'll grab you in and flip you over, put you on your feet. The author of the book, A Shepherd's Look at Psalms 23, talks about the fact that he'll not only put you on your feet, but when you have to flip over a lamb that has been upside down for a while because they can't take it too long, after a couple of hours, if it's a hot day, they'll die. But when you turn them over, the circulation has left their limbs, and you have to start to massage each one of their forepaws, and you have to massage each one of their hind legs, and you have to get that blood circulating back. And at first they're a little woozy, but the good shepherd would make sure that the sheep is all right before he leaves them again. I'm so glad that God is always seeking me when I'm slipping, and that he knows just what I need to get me going again. My God restores. And it's not just the wayward soul, but every Christian ought to know that sometimes you're going to slip. Sometimes, even because of blessings, sometimes you find yourself in a place where you can't get out on your own. But we don't have to worry. We don't have to die with our legs up in the air, because our God is always counting. Our God is always searching. Our God always knows when we're in need of restoration. And so we don't have to live in fear. Whether we at the bottom of the totem pole in our so-called life, or whether we at the top of our game, David says, look, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He tells me where to lie down. And when I fall over, he's always there to pick me up. That's good news. From the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 3. Amen.